welcome to All In on Real Estate. I'm your host, Aaron Goins. I started this meetup because when I was in the military, no one in my circles talked about real estate. A lot of time they talked about debt, saving money or not money at all, not saving money at all. And I want to start a meetup so people can understand the power of real estate and build generational wealth for them and their family. So I'm really excited for our guest speaker, Mr. Adam Doran. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, man. Good. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm very, very excited to get in and just talk and go from there, man. So can you please introduce yourself to everybody, please?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I recognize some familiar faces. Claudia, good to see you. Lawrence, I recognize you. We've talked before. Shamil, is it Shamil? I think I've seen you on here before too. John and Robert, haven't met you guys, but good to see you. So yeah, guys, I'm located in Kansas City. My full-time gig is that I am a wealth advisor specializing in working with real estate investors. I myself am a real estate investor and have been since 2011. Got into wholesaling, then did single family rentals, then graduated to multifamily real estate in 2019. So I'm actively always looking for the next multifamily deal that I can be an investor in. I've also done some private lending, so that's kind of my background. As far as what I think makes me different in my field of wealth advising is I really believe traditional financial services is broken. Traditional financial planning is broken in that it takes control away from the client. And so my goal is to educate people on how real wealth works and help them to take back that control. And I'll just give you two quick examples of how I think the traditional industry does people a disservice. The first example is, by default, if you have an employer or if you go to a financial institution, they will have you accumulating your wealth in tax deferred accounts where you're building up this nest egg and you haven't paid taxes on the money. And when you look at taxes historically and where they're likely to go in the future, I firmly believe tax rates will be higher in the future. And so if that's the case, I believe it puts us in a tax trap to be saving our money in these vehicles where we haven't paid taxes on it and we're growing that pile of money. So let me just ask you, if you're doing that and you plan to take income from that account later in life, what does it do to your income in the future if tax rates go up by 10%? What's it do if they go up by 20%? What's it do if they double? So I want to help clients insulate themselves from that risk by building tax-free wealth. That's the first thing. The second example I'll give you that makes my approach different is that traditional retirement accounts or traditional ways of saving and accumulating wealth will have you handing your money over to a third-party manager and you're not able to access your money till age 59 and a half. And if you do, they penalize you for it. I don't think that's a good thing, because I think in these working years, while we're trying to accumulate wealth, we're going to have opportunities to invest in real estate, to buy into a business or to start a business. A lot of people in America would love to invest in real estate or to start a business, but they don't have the money. Well, they do have the money, but it's stashed away in an account that they're not allowed to access till they're 59 and a half. So want to give you back that control and show you how to build an account that you can access without penalties. So those are really two of the primary drivers behind my business and the strategies that we like to teach real estate investors. And that's what I'm here to talk about tonight with you guys. And what I'd like to do, I do have like a little presentation thing. And I'll share that, but I'd rather that it be more back and forth conversational and be a dialogue between those of us that are here tonight.
Hey, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. I think that's very good. I mean, we small group today, but very powerful. So yeah. Go ahead, man. The floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, guys. Well, so what I'll do is, and I think we'll check here if he gave me the ability to screen share. Let me do that real quick. And we'll start from current slide. Does everybody see where it says blind spots?
Yes, sir.
Head nods? Okay, cool. So when I'm working for a client, I like to take them through, and I'm specifically speaking now to real estate investors, which again, guys, I'm one of you. I do real estate investing too. So I don't think it's the things that we've thought about, the things that we already know that are going to be problematic. I think it's the things that we haven't thought about yet, the things that we haven't asked ourselves that question that reveals a blind spot. So I really try to make it a part of my business practice when I'm working for people to ask questions that reveal blind spots. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions tonight to maybe help reveal some blind spots for you as far as you're building your real estate portfolio, how you think about your capital, how you think about the money that you're building that's going to support you doing the next deal. And so the first question I would ask you is your capital protected against market risk? And is it insulated from rising tax rates? That was one of the things I just mentioned. Second, every time you use your money, wherever you're saving it, savings account, money market account, trading account, wherever you're saving cash and getting ready for the next deal, what's the cost every time you take money out of that account and stop earning a return in that account and you go put it in the real estate? What are you missing out on when you do that? And then third, is your personal wealth concentrated all within your business? So whereas most Americans' personal wealth would be concentrated or over concentrated in their 401k, are you over concentrated in your real estate where if all of your properties suddenly stopped cash flowing, you'd be in a dilemma? And I bring that up and people would used to laugh at that. I would used to laugh at that. But do you all remember what happened last March in 2020 when all of a sudden the federal government said it was okay for people not to pay their rent? I got really worried because I own multifamily properties and I was like, man, this is the safest investment out there. And I still believe it's an amazing investment. Real estate's my favorite asset class. But I'm going to tell you that was a situation that I had never thought of being possible. And I got really worried for a little bit. Now, all of us are on the call, so I assume we all made it through that. But I think my point is valid in me saying that it's important that we don't over concentrate our wealth in any one particular area, because things can go wrong that we never imagined. And so it's just important to be thoughtful of that and then to build our wealth accordingly. So I'm going to give you solutions to all 3 of these points that I'm asking, right? If I'm going to reveal the problem, I'm going to obviously share a solution. So my objective tonight is to show you a way that as you're building capital and accumulating cash to do deals, how you can insulate that capital from market risk and from rising tax rates. I'm going to show you how you can actually achieve uninterrupted compounding growth on your cash savings, even when you use it to do deals. And I'm going to show you how you can accelerate the process of building real wealth by being able to make your dollar work in 2 places at the same time and build multiple assets at the same time. I'll give you a case study example of a client of mine that's doing that and what I'm doing with my own money. I think it's important to start with, where do we even put cash? So if you're doing real estate successfully, you're eventually going to have this problem where you sell the property for more than you bought it for. You're going to collect cash flows, and those cash flows are going to build up in an account, and it's turning into this pile of money. It's a good problem. It means you've been doing your real estate successfully. So where do you put that cash to get the best use of the money? And for most people, it goes in one of 2 accounts. And I spoke to this at the beginning. It either goes in a taxable account like checking, savings, or like Robinhood or E-Trade or TD Ameritrade, wherever you trade stocks. Bonds are on that list, but I don't think people use them much anymore, or CDs, but I put it on the list just so you could have an example. That's an account where anytime you earn interest or you get capital gains, you get a 1099 every year and you got to pay taxes on it. That's why it's a taxable account. Those accounts are useful because they're very liquid. It's easy to move money in and out. So you know you can dip in there and use it for a deal. Then there's tax deferred accounts. That's 401ks, IRAs, all the stuff your employers offer you for retirement. And again, I mentioned the thing that's problematic about that is most of the time people have 80% or more of all their wealth wrapped up in these first 2 buckets, which means a change in tax rates changes your income picture. So how can we help you mitigate against that? Also, I would say one more thing about tax deferred accounts. Unlike the taxable accounts, they're not very liquid. You don't get to touch that money till you're 59 and a half. So I want to spend time tonight on the tax-free bucket, because this is where traditional wealth planning, traditional financial planning doesn't spend a lot of time. And there's options to build tax-free wealth. Probably the one that all of you are familiar with on the call, and you're welcome to put it in the chat. I'm just kind of curious. I'll just poll the audience here. What is a tax-free account that you could use to build tax-free wealth? Does anybody want to plug that in chat just real quick? So I know that you all are not only with me, but kind of test the room here. Anybody know what is a tax-free account that I could build? Think retirement accounts, maybe. Anybody got it for me? An IRA, what kind of IRA? Self-directed. Okay. And then as opposed to a traditional, how about a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k? So give you an example here. Roth IRA, that goes in the tax-free bucket. So we can put money in, it grows tax-free, we can take income out tax-free, and there's some built-in asset protections because it's a retirement account. Couple limitations to the Roth. If you're going to make that account grow, when you put the money in, you got to do something with it. You got to take risk. So there's downside risk. You can actually earn too much money to be eligible to make Roth contributions. You have contribution limits. If you're under 50 years old, you can put in 6,000 a year. If you're 50 or older, you can put in 7,000 a year. So does anybody here have an ambition to make more than $70,000 a year? Maybe some of you are already making more than 70,000 a year. Yeah, me too.
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's say you're making $250,000 a year. Let's say you could put 6,000 a year into this. Is that enough money to really build tax-free wealth when you're earning $250 a year? I mean, that's not even 10% of your income. It's not even 5% of your income. So there's some contribution limits that get in the way of building wealth there. There's also the withdrawal restriction we talked about. Before age 59 and a half, they penalize you. And here's the big one. Every dollar you put into your Roth, you report to the IRS, which means if they want to change the rules in the future, they know exactly what's in there. And if they change the rules, they know exactly what's there to tax. So it's important to be aware of other options. And one primary option where we'll spend the balance of our time tonight that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but it's very misunderstood. And oftentimes people really don't understand how it works. So we're going to clarify how it works. But permanent cash value life insurance also can be a tax-free bucket for you. And it can do the same things that a Roth does. The growth is technically tax deferred, but I'm going to show you how you can make it tax-free. We can take tax-free income in retirement, and we have built-in asset protections, just like with a retirement account, but we don't have any of the limitations. So when you deposit money into that account, there's no downside risk, and you're actually guaranteed a minimum upside. There's also no limit on how much income you make. So if you make 10,000 a year, 100,000 a year, or 100 million a year, you can do this and build a tax-free bucket of money. And then there's no contribution limits. In other words, if you want to put in 2,000 a year or 200,000 a year, you can. You're not going to be capped on what you can put in. There aren't any withdrawal restrictions. You can access your money from day one. Whatever you're depositing in there, you can access your money. And then what I love about it is there is no IRS reporting. As long as we structure it the right way and build it within the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code, we don't have to report it to the IRS. And so if the IRS would ever change the tax rules, well, you've not reported to them what's in there, so they don't know what's available to be taxed. Furthermore, and this goes to one of the points I just mentioned in the last slide, you can actually earn uninterrupted compounding growth on your money, compounding interest, even when you dip in the bucket and you use the money and plug it into your real estate deals. So I want you to imagine, like, if you had a savings account, a bank savings account, it's tax-free and it's earning, let's say, 4% interest, which, by the way, is anybody getting 4% interest in their savings account today? I don't think any of us are. You can actually get that in this. So if you're getting 4% tax-free, and then imagine there's 100 grand in there and you can grab it and you can put it into a real estate deal and make 12% on the real estate deal. Now I'm making 4% over here on my cash account, and I'm making 12% over here on my real estate deal at the same time. And when I sell my real estate deal and collect my profits, or when I refinance it, I can put the 100 grand back and the account balance trues up to the ledger like I never took the money and used it. So that goes to my question that I asked you about, what are you missing out on if you interrupt the compounding growth of your savings account? Every time you pull money out and you go do a deal, well, with this account, there is no opportunity cost because you continue to earn interest and dividends along the way. So it makes it a very, very unique functioning savings account. I'm going to pause for a second because I've already covered a lot of ground quickly. And if anybody wants to either ask a question or just provide some feedback on, wow, this is something I was not familiar with, happy to just take comments or questions real quick, and then I'll move on.
I have a question. Adam, how about What would be the difference with a self-directed IRA that you can do things with and not get taxed?
Great question. Yeah.
Buying real estate or any type of assets.
Yeah.
Because
Very
now
good
you're
question.
buying insurance, you're buying life insurance.
Yep.
And using it for another purpose.
Yep. Very good question. So the first thing, I'm going to step back just a little bit before answering the question directly, Robert, and say that because I've got these two side by side on the screen, I'm not telling you you should do one or the other. I'm not painting this as an either or. What I'm saying is here is another creative strategy that's available for you to use as a strategy and as a tool. So to be clear, Robert, I'm not saying do this instead of that. What I'm saying is here is an additional tax-free account that you can use, and it comes with some flexibilities and options that maybe the retirement account doesn't. So now going back to your question specifically, the difference is with your retirement account, which you can absolutely do that with a Roth, just like you said, Robert. I have one, by the way, a self-directed Roth. So you can start with, let's say, $10,000 and turn it into 10 million, and you never have to worry about taxes on that account. And your rate of return is outrageous because you turn 10,000 into 10 million, which is fantastic. However, that account has limitations, and that $10 million isn't doing you any good today if you're under 59 and a half. You don't get to take and enjoy that income right now. So it's nice to have an account that you can dip into now, make use of now, and use that to build assets now that you can collect income from now. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And I've seen this. It was a presentation, but from someone else, probably a few months back, about this concept of insurance and using, the money like this. So I was just trying to see what the difference with the self-directed compared to this cash value life insurance.
I would say your differences are pretty well right here on the screen as far as the flexibilities that this vehicle adds. And I'm circling it with my cursor here. These flexibilities can be valuable, particularly if you want an aspect of your asset portfolio to not be subjected to downside risk and to not be correlated to the market or to real estate. You want to know you've got a safe place you can put money with no downside risk. I think that's valuable because back in, oh, I don't know, 30 years from, 30 years ago, people might have viewed that asset as bonds per se, would be your safe money. Well, if you look at where bonds are today, it's probably the most risky asset I can think of because rates are at historic lows and likely to go higher. So if you buy into a bond today, you're almost guaranteeing yourself loss. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You almost can't do anything but lose money if you buy a bond today. And so knowing that you have a place you can deposit money and it's only going to go up in value can be really valuable as far as, cash savings. Now, as far as earning returns, probably your performance in your IRA all day, every day, and twice on Sunday is going to outperform the cash in your life insurance policy, no question. So it has to have its appropriate place within your portfolio as a cash account, not as an investment, and a cash account that you can dip into and use to support your real estate investing, buying a business, or whatever other kind of investments you're doing. Does that sound
wise? I love the things that it allows, this type of account allows. The no income limits, you don't report it, no withdrawal restrictions. That's very important when you're buying real estate. And like you're talking about, pulling money out, do your deal, put it back, things like that. It's very liquid. So that's good.
Thanks, man. Great questions. And this is why I like to make this conversational, because that brought out a couple really good points that weren't necessarily a part of, this slide, but I think are valuable to realize. And we also got to talk about the value of being strategic, right? It's not just that this is a silver bullet type solution and everybody should jump into this, but rather, how can you think about it strategically and how can you fit it into an overall plan of what you're trying to accomplish with your money? So
before you go, I have a question, Adam.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Great presentation so far. So does this work? Let's say you retired. Does this work also for the retirees also? If somebody retired?
That's a pretty loaded question, Lawrence, because it depends on what you want to do.
Okay,
I will tell you, I've had clients in their 60s implement something like this. And the reason that they did it wasn't so that they had a cash account to support real estate. The reason they did that was because it was more of a family legacy play.
okay,
And that's a different way to leverage this asset. And that's a different conversation, not
Okay.
today's conversation, but good question.
thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move on real quick, guys, because something that Robert had mentioned was structure and how this is set up. And you didn't say it, Robert, but you probably were going to, is that the way that you structure this has to be planned, thought out, and intentional, and you got to do it right. Because you can, if you do life insurance the traditional way, where we're simply buying a death benefit and we're paying as few dollars as we can to buy as much death benefit as we can, is not going to work for us. We have to flip that paradigm on its head and say, I want to buy as little death benefit as I can get away with and put as much cash in as I possibly can. And that's how we actually create an asset. So there's actually a minimum and a maximum amount that you could pay for a given death benefit. Let's just say the death benefit is $1 million, just because that's a round number. The traditional model of life insurance is you walk into State Farm or whoever your life insurance person is, and you say, I want $1 million whole life policy. They're going to quote you a rate, a premium rate, and it's going to be the lowest dollar amount that the company has priced it at to be competitive. There's also a maximum amount of dollars you could put into that $1 million death benefit, but they're not going to talk to you about that, because why does anybody want to pay as much as they can for a death benefit? Nobody wants to do that. But if you understand how you can build this as a cash asset and protect it from taxes and turn it into a tax-free retirement income stream and use it like a bank account while you're building your real estate, well, that's a different conversation. What's interesting, guys, is that that maximum dollar amount is not set by the insurance company. It's set by the IRS. So you have to ask yourself, why does the IRS care how many dollars you're putting into $1 million death benefit? Well, the reason they care is because that policy is going to get special tax treatment, and that's going to be money that they're never going to be able to tax again. So the IRS will allow you to do that, but they put limits around it. And that limit is called a MEC, or a modified endowment contract limit. And very simply stated, what a MEC is the IRS says, okay, you're going to build a tax-free money account. That's fine. But if you're going to put in, let's just say $20,000 a year, then you're going to have to buy at least $1 million of death benefit to go along with it, so that this is justified as a life insurance policy. It's not just a glorified savings account. Well, a traditional life insurance policy that is structured the way I talked about first, where you go into State Farm and you get your quote and you're paying as little as you can, that policy is going to accumulate so little cash value that it's never going to approach anywhere near that MEC limit that the IRS sets, because it wasn't designed for that. It was designed for you to buy a lot of death benefit. The way that we structure them is we are deliberately driving down the death benefit amount and deliberately driving up how much you're putting into it, all the way up to that limit that the IRS sets. Not beyond, but up to the limit. So we're going to do what they'll let us do legally and ethically. And this account then becomes a tax-free account. It's a very, very different design and structure. So it has to be intentional, and the professional you're working with has to know what they're doing so that we structure it this way. Everybody clear on that? Was that a good, I took something that's a very, very complex concept and tried to break it down super simple in a picture. And what I'll share with you guys is that now that you've seen this and I've walked you through this, if you grasp what's on this slide, you understand more than 95% of insurance professionals out there. Most of them aren't even aware that this can be done with whole life insurance policies. So congratulations. You all get your honorary certificate as knowing more than, yeah, Aaron's like, that's right, more than 95% of life insurance professionals out there. Questions before I move on?
Yeah, I have, Adam. Now, this is a whole life insurance policy, but you're driving down the death benefit. So upon death, that the beneficiary would get next to nothing. Is there a beneficiary?
Great question. Yes, there's a beneficiary. There's always a beneficiary with a life insurance policy. And the death benefit won't be next to nothing. It will still be significant. It will still be significant. And you're going to see, because I'm going to walk you through a case study.
All right.
So I'm not going to take time to go through all these. I usually do when I'm sharing this with a real estate group, but I want to move through this quickly to give you guys the chance to ask more questions, for us to have dialogue, and then Aaron, if there's going to be a networking session as well. But just a couple examples of people who use this. And I love that I've had this example in this presentation for the last few years before he was elected president. But Joe Biden actually lists 6 Mass Mutual whole life insurance policies on his personal financial disclosure from 2011 when he was the vice president. And what I want you to see, not only that he has 6 of these, I want you to see where he listed it. He listed it under assets and income. So I'm just going to ask you, the last time you thought about life insurance, did you think assets and income, or did you think expenses? Because most people think expenses.
Mm-hmm.
He has built this as asset and income, and he actually checked the boxes that he receives dividends and he receives tax-free income in retirement from his policies. So this is a real thing. It's not just me, some guy telling you about this strategy. People in the know use this. Walt Disney used this. The founder of Pampered Chef used this. Our current president uses it. The coach of the University of Michigan football team uses it. And banks are the largest purchasers of whole life insurance, and they use it to fund executive bonuses. Real quick sidebar on that, and then we'll move on, because I want to show you guys how this applies to those of us on the call as a real estate investor. But I think this is really interesting. And since you all are business owners and investors, one day, if you have a lot of employees and you have some key employees that you really don't want to lose, this could be a valuable sidebar for you. So the reason banks are the largest purchasers of whole life insurance is because they can structure it as a discretionary benefit to their key employees. In other words, I'm going to bring it down to our example. Let's say I have a multi-million-dollar real estate company and I have a property manager that I cannot afford to lose. He works for my company. His name's Bob. And if Bob ever would choose to leave me for the competition, I would be high and dry. I need Bob. He's a critical linchpin in my business. And let's say I have Susie and she's my primary capital raiser. Susie does business development, investor relations. If I lost Susie, I would be up a creek without a paddle. So I've got tons of other employees, but when it comes down to it, if Bob or Susie left, it would really disrupt my business. I want to give them something that's worth them staying with me. So if I offer Bob or Susie some sort of retirement plan, like 401k or something like that, if I give it to one of them, I have to give it to every employee. It is non-discretionary. It falls under the ERISA rules. However, I can set up a whole life insurance policy for Bob or Susie individually, call them in the office privately, and form an agreement with them that says, hey, we're going to do this life insurance policy and the company is going to match, we're going to have you contribute and we'll match your contributions. And if you agree to stick with us for the next 10 years, we can pretty much guarantee you'll retire a tax-free millionaire just based off the policy alone, because it's a contractually guaranteed asset. However, if you leave us, you'll forfeit the asset and we'll give it to the next person in line. And I can do that as a discretionary benefit to Bob and Susie, but not give it to any of the other employees. So it's an incredibly flexible executive bonus arrangement. Just thought I'd share that sidebar because that might be useful to you in the future as your business grows and you have more employees, that you can actually use that as kind of a golden handcuffs to hang on to your most valuable people. Is that a good tip?
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
So Adam,
Yes, sir.
so is it cash value life insurance or whole life insurance?
Yes, and they're the same
Are they
thing.
interchangeable?
Same thing.
Same thing. Okay, thank
Same
you.
thing. Yep. So, okay, case study for how it applies for you and me, those of us on the call. This is one of my clients, 40-year-old female real estate investor. Just reading across the top of the screen here. $2,000 a month was already money that's in her financial ecosystem that she is putting in different places to save for the future and to build her portfolio. So maybe some of that's going to an IRA, maybe some of that's going to a savings account, maybe some of it's going to Edward Jones, whatever. But she had $2,000 a month already earmarked towards building for the future. So this is really, really important. I want you guys to grasp this, is that when I meet with folks and we're talking about this strategy and trying to fit it into their world, if it fits and if they want to do it, we want to look at money that's already there. We don't want somebody to have to create new money. We don't want to have to disrupt lifestyle. We're going to, forgo that trip to Hawaii because I started this thing. No, that's not what we do. We find money that's already there in your world and say, hey, can we take $2,000 a month from here and put it over here and get a greater net result? So in this client's case, she was stashing all of her money in a savings account, because that's what I find most real estate investors do, because at least you don't have to risk losing 30% of it, right? I'm not going to give it to my advisor and have them lose 30% in the market. At least it's not locked up like it would be in a 401k. It's available, so I can dip in that savings account and use it. So that's what she was doing. And I said, well, let's just do a side-by-side. Let's just show from now to your age 65, if you keep putting $2,000 a month in your savings account, what that can do for you and building your real estate portfolio. And then let's look at doing it into this strategy and see what that looks like. And let's just put them side by side. So I'll give you guys that side-by-side breakdown in a minute. First, I'm going to show you what her policy looks like. So here's how the capital account grows. This is her savings account now, is this policy. Remember, those dollar amounts you see, that's a tax-free account, and that money's liquid. Okay, so she's a real estate investor. So along the way, she's going to build a portfolio. So let's start with a single family. Let's say at age 45, when there's a cash value of about $83,000 in her account, she's going to take a $50,000 policy loan and go purchase a single family home. So the $50,000 is probably a down payment, right? That's not going to buy the whole deal, but maybe that's the down payment. She can then either refinance, collect rents from that property, or she can sell it at a profit. And whenever she does that, she can put the 50 grand back, just as you would with your savings account. You put it back as you're able to do. But she bought the single family. Now, 5 years later, age 50, there's $217,000 in the account. Let's say she takes a $100,000 loan, and this time it's a down payment on a fourplex deal. So she's scaling up on her portfolio. Then let's say we do one more at age 55. There's $394,000 available at age 55. She's going to do a $250,000 loan. And let's just say she's participating in one of you all's syndication, because I know that's what a lot of the folks on these calls, right? We're going to syndicate deals. Okay, you're a GP, you've got a deal, she's going to plug 250 into your deal. So what I want you to notice is not only did we build the real estate assets, but keep in mind what I mentioned earlier, we can build two assets at the same time. We have this tax-free savings account growing too. So at retirement, she's built not only the asset portfolio, she has an entire additional non-correlated asset, which is this account with $932,998 totally tax-free money. And now she's diversified, because instead of having all of her wealth concentrated in just the real estate portfolio, she has a bunch of wealth in this other non-correlated account. Do you see what we did there? We did what she was going to do anyway. She was going to build the real estate portfolio. But at the same time, we built up this tax-free asset right alongside of it. We got twice the bang for the same buck. And you're going to see that come back to her in retirement here in a second. So let's take a look at what it looks like as far as money in versus money out. Over the age 40 to age 65, she put in $2,000 a month for 25 years, comes out to $600,000 she put into her life insurance policy that acted as a capital account to support the real estate. From that policy, she can take 1.6 million in tax-free income from age 71 to 90, taking out $85,783 a year. Pretty nice supplemental income to put on top of whatever she's getting from the properties and whatever she's getting from, if she has a 401k or an IRA, and any other investments or businesses. Now, what's nice about that 1.6 million in retirement income is that's real money that she got to keep, that she didn't have to report to the IRS. If that money had come out of a 401k and she was in the 24% tax bracket, she'd have had to withdraw about $112,000 a year to net the same $85,000 in income, because you got to pay taxes on it. So the money goes further and it lasts longer. Now back to what Robert said about death benefit. Robert, if she kicks the bucket at age 90, having taken out all that 1.6 million and used it and never put it back into the policy, there's still a death benefit remaining of $915,000 that will go tax-free to whoever her beneficiary is. So when you even add the legacy on top of the retirement income, you've got an account that over a 25-year period, she deposited 600 grand. And then over a 19-year period in retirement, that returned her money back. What's 2.5 million or 600, basically 4 times, gave her 4x back what she put in. So it distributes very efficiently long-term. Any reactions to that or questions to clarify on that? And then I'll show you guys side by side if she'd have kept doing the savings account.
I wish I
Yeah.
knew this before.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
No, I said, I wish I'd known the reaction. I wish I'd known this before, a long time ago.
Hear that every day. I hear that from people that are 60, and I hear that from people that are 30.
If you can go back a slide, Adam.
Yep.
So how is this growing from 82 to 217 in 5 years? Is this accumulating more properties, or you're talking about 4% interest? Or what type of investments is that money going into when you're making what monthly? You're saying 2,000 a month over 25 years. How exactly is that growing like that?
Yep. So I am going to try to explain this in a way that doesn't add confusion, but answers your question, because it's very hard to explain the inner workings of a whole life policy and how it does what it does, but I'm going to do my best to explain it. So what you'll notice, and what I think you did notice, and why you asked your question, the momentum of how this cash account builds picks up steam over the long term. And so the dividends get bigger every year and the compounding interest gets bigger every year. So that's how you can go from, in 5 years, from 83 grand to 217 grand, even though in that same 5-year time frame, she only deposited, let's see, 24,000 times 5. She deposited 120,000, but her account grew by $134,000. So essentially over that time period, for every dollar she deposited over those 5 years, her account got credited $1.12. So it's like having a savings account where the bank says, if you deposit $1, we'll credit you $1.12.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's with no risk.
No risk and tax-free. But
Correct.
what is that? Are you talking the interest rate of, you were saying 4%? This
Right.
account
So
earns?
let's go back. Yep. Great question. So if I'm tracking with your question, you're like, well, wait a second, Adam, you told me this is about a 4% account, but what you just told me was 12% on your money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the jumps from 82 to 217.
Yep.
And then of course it's going higher and higher. Just kind of figuring, how are we getting there? What type of interest? I understand it's tax-free. You're buying properties, all of that.
Yep.
But there's got to be interest compounding to get to that.
Well, there is. And the other thing is the contractual nature of a whole life policy issued by a mutual company. There is contractually guaranteed minimum accumulation, which means even if they didn't pay a dividend, your account would still go up every year. And then on top of that, they pay a non-guaranteed dividend. Now, to talk interest rates is kind of deceptive and misleading. So I try to simplify it, and I always tell people it's like having a 4% interest savings account, because that's really what it's like. Over the life of this policy, if you would break it down over the whole life of the policy, you've got a 4% savings account. Now I'm going to add some confusion. But if you'll notice, at age 45, that's 5 years into this, there's 83 grand in there. Well, in 5 years, she actually contributed more than that. She contributed 24,000 times 5. She contributed 120 grand in the first 5 years, but she only has access to 83,000. So if you looked at this as an investment, you'd say, well, you're losing money. And if it were an investment, I guess that's true. But the way I look at it is, this is a cash account where I'm going to get access to progressively more each year that goes by, because it makes up for it, because at age 65, you've deposited 600,000, but you've got access to 932. So over the long term, you end up having more dollars available than you ever put in, but you have to hang with it for the long term, because if you would quit this plan 5 years in, you lost money. Does that make sense?
What is the break even point?
On this particular policy, it's year 12 on this particular one.
Okay,
And
so like halfway, 25 years, half, 12.
yeah, that's
And a break
not a fair comparison though, Robert, because for each person it's going to be different. And you know, a 35-year-old male with an ultra preferred rate is going to come out different. Or if a client did a policy that was fully paid up in 10 years rather than 25, their break even point is going to happen in year 8, which that in itself is not important. And the reason it's not important is because you have to think about long term, what's your overall plan? Where are you going to put cash long term? And I'll bring this home here in just a second when we get to the side by side with the savings account. And my question would be to you, are you ever going to stop depositing cash somewhere if you keep making money?
No.
No, you're going to have a place to deposit that cash. So my argument would be, this is the smartest place you could deposit it, because one of two things will happen. The first one we hope doesn't happen, but either you're going to die too early, and if that happens, this all leverages up to the death benefit, which is many, many times more than what you ever deposited. Or you're going to live a long, healthy, happy life, and you're going to end up getting 3, 4, 5 times back what you ever put in. So either way, you can't lose as long as you stick with it. That's kind of how I view it. So I'm going to bring this home when we compare it to the savings account real quick. So I said, what if you just keep doing what you're doing? If she keeps doing what she's doing and she can find a savings account that pays 1.6%, that was the best rate that I could find online. It was through some bank called VO Bank, which I've never heard of, but it was the highest rate I could find at the time. If you do that and you earn 1.6% compounding every year, at age 65, you'll have $782,000 in that account. You'll only be able to take $665,000 in income, and you're going to run out of money at age 79. And the reason is because if you don't have a whole life policy and you don't have that tax-free asset, then that means you're using a tax-deferred asset in retirement, and you're going to have to pay taxes. So I'm saying that we're going to use this account to help offset those taxes, which means even though there's $782,000 in the account, you're not going to get to take that home. You're going to only get to take home $665, because you got to use the account to help you pay taxes on the money that you're taking out of your 401k. That's my rationale. Does that make sense? So with the policy, we just saw that example. At age 65, the account has accumulated to $932,000, $998,000. And we saw the retirement income from age 71 to 90 was actually 1.6 million. And the money doesn't run out at age 79. So this goes back to the questions I asked in the beginning. What is the cost of interrupting the compounding of your account if you're taking money out and doing your deals? Well, if you use a traditional savings account and you're earning compounding interest, in this example, she missed out on $122,000 in compound interest that she would have received if she'd used a policy instead of a savings account. And in this example, she actually had to pay almost $30,000 in taxes over those 25 years, because that 1.6% interest gets a 1099 every single year on that account. And then furthermore, when you look at the difference in retirement income, you literally are talking about the same $600,000 in her financial world that's going to pass through her hands over a 25-year period. And just because we're choosing one vehicle versus another, the net difference is over $1 million in net effect. And it's the same money. It's the same 600,000 just put in a different place. So again, I don't view the policy as an investment. I don't think the policy substitutes for also maybe having a self-directed IRA, for doing your real estate, or for, you know, investing in a business. But when it comes to a place to build up cash so that you have capital available to use for your deals, I am unaware of a smarter place to put it, or a place that will work better for you and get you more bang for your buck than the policy that we're talking about using. So that's kind of the total of what I had to share with you guys tonight, just to get you to think creatively about your capital strategy as a real estate investor. This isn't necessarily something that is for everyone. Some people just don't view it the way that I do. But I feel mathematically there's a pretty compelling case for why it makes sense to warehouse cash within this vehicle. Thanks for giving me your time and your attention to share and walk through this strategy, guys.
Hey, Adam, I'd like to add to the, well, whenever you get a chance, you got a calendar so I can set up an appointment to talk to you a little bit.
Oh yeah,
further?
shoot, I should, is that John?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, let me see if I can't pull that and I'll post it in the chat here in a minute. Does that sound good, man?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
So you're paying for the insurance, right? Are those rates competitive? Like you're paying just for the ability to have insurance?
So when you say, are those rates competitive, Claudia, what I would tell you is everybody has to, I'm gonna kind of go off to the side, and then I'm gonna come back to your question. So we'll get you a full answer. And John, I just plugged my Calendly link in there for you. So Claudia, when we walk a client through evaluating this strategy and if they should do it, and if it makes sense for them, and if it's a good use of money, we have them go through the underwriting process with the insurance company, and we get an offer back from the insurance company, and they say, okay, this person is approved at preferred non-smoker, standard non-smoker, whatever. Then once we have that, we run the numbers, and the person's like, yep, I want to put $2,000 a month into this. Okay, well, let's run those numbers and let's make sure that you like how the math works out before you decide to do this. So to answer your question about competitive rates, we're not going to do it if the rates don't make sense. Does that help answer that question? Now, one of the other things that you asked, Claudia, was you're doing this to own insurance. Well, yes and no. Yes, because we have to. The vehicle that we're using is an insurance policy because it's what we have to do to make the money tax-free. But it's not the primary goal. It's nice that that death benefit comes along for the ride, because if family legacy is important to you, then that could be valuable. But it's not the primary reason that we're doing it. The primary reason we're doing it is because I'm looking for a smart place to store cash, to insulate it from taxes, and to have access to that money, so that unlike my retirement accounts where that money's locked up till I'm 59 and a half, I actually have access to this account. Those are kind of the primary reasons behind it. Did I answer your question the way that you were hoping? Like, did I hit the mark there?
Yeah, thank you. Because I think life insurance can be very expensive, and I guess it depends on like your underwriting and your history. But I feel, to me, that's a turnoff. Like, you gotta pay this money, right, for the benefits of like the money aspect of it, but you gotta pay for the insurance, like, you know, to be able to take advantage of those benefits. Yeah.
I think I agree with that to a certain extent, particularly those first 5, 7, 8 years in the policy's life. It feels very expensive because I'm putting in more dollars than I'm able to use. And that is where this is really counterintuitive, because you're like, man, that's an expensive way to have a cash account. I could just put it in a savings account and I could have access to all of it. And then you start thinking, you know, maybe there's an opportunity cost with the money that I could be using that I didn't get to use for those first few years. And that's absolutely a valid argument. And what I would tell you is, if your financial strategy is more short-term and you're looking at what can I do in the next 5 years, what can I do even in the next 10 years, then maybe this strategy does not fit in your world. But if you're having a 20-year view or a 30-year view, I just showed you the math. This absolutely is the better vehicle versus, say, a savings account or a brokerage account. I mean, the math proves it, but it does require a 20 to 30 year view. And the other thing I think, Claudia, that's important is if legacy is not a very important part of someone's plan, or if somebody doesn't have any direct descendants and they don't really have any charities that they're interested in, so legacy is not a big deal, then this loses some of its value. Because, at least for me, because my family puts a significant amount of money into this strategy every year, not only is it important to me how I can use that account today, it's really important to me that at some point down the road, I've taken care of the next 2 or 3 generations. So that's valuable to me. So obviously this plan is valuable to me. If that legacy piece is not a priority in your world, then it may not be a fit, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's the how expensive it is upfront. That is
Yeah,
hard
that can
to
feel really painful.
swallow. Yeah, that would be.
That can feel really painful, and for some folks, that's just not something that they're willing to deal with, and that's okay.
And you said how many of these can you take out? One person?
Well, so there's not technically a limit. Like the IRS doesn't have any, like you can only have 5 or you can only have 10. You saw, I just showed you Joe Biden owns 6.
Yeah.
As of 2011, he may have more now.
Wow.
A lot of the clients that I work for have multiples. Our family has and will continue to have multiples. And basically what happens is as your income goes up over the years, or if you liquidate a large asset and you have a lot of money, stacked up, you end up wanting to transition more of that money in so that you can have it be a tax-free
Right.
position. So the answer to your question is technically there's not a limit. The one thing I would tell you is at some point you run out of death benefit that the insurance company is willing to issue you. So if you're making $500,000 a year, probably somewhere between 40 and $50 million, they're going to stop you and say, well, we're not going to sell you any more death benefit because you only make, $500,000 a year. So that can be one limitation on you, but I've not had a client run into that problem yet.
Okay.
Adam, would there be a minimum? I know you used the example 2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Is that where it starts, or?
Great question. Yeah. I would say that obviously the larger the dollar amount, the more impactful this becomes. The smaller the dollar amount, the less compelling that it is. So I'm going to try to give you a rule of thumb, and it's not an absolute. I have clients that do these all the way down to $100 a month, which that's a policy where their 2-year-old son is the insured person. So $100 a month going into something like this on a 2-year-old, it still accumulates in a meaningful way because a 2-year-old does not have a high cost of insurance, right? So $100 a month actually does something.
Mhm.
And then we have clients, not me personally, but our firm has clients that have gone all the way up to, they're putting $3 to $5 million a year into one of these because they're wanting it to accumulate tax-free. We're talking, large family business owners or family offices. So anywhere in that range. And what I would say, Robert, is as a general rule of thumb, if you do not have at least $500 a month of discretionary income that you can decide what to do with that $500 and it's no sweat, then it's probably not time to be looking at strategies like this because there's other more basic things you need to be doing in your financial world. But if you are at that level or above, I think it's worth at least looking at if, and here's the big if you're the kind of person who is trying to build wealth outside of just a job, right? So if you're building a business, if you're owning real estate, if you're actively investing, those are the type of people that, this type of strategy might make sense for.
Okay.
You're active in your finances.
Very good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great questions.
With your Calendly, that would be a way to set up a meeting. Are you going to leave contact info, or is it just through Calendly?
Oh, I can absolutely leave here. I'm going to give you guys my LinkedIn just because that has my email in it. Plus I check my LinkedIn every day. So that's a real easy way to reach me.
Yeah.
Let me do that real quick. I love connecting with people on there. The other thing that's cool about LinkedIn is you can send voice messages back and forth. I love that feature. So there you guys go. Aaron, thanks so much for the invite just to share tonight. And guys, thank you for, again, your attention. And I hope you got something valuable out of it. And even if this isn't a strategy for you, I hope there were some good takeaways.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah,
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Anytime that we can find a tax shelter, I think it's great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great presentation, and I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time, so very good.
Sounds good, Robert.
Great presentation, Adam. All
Thanks,
the
Aaron.
time, man. I mean, every time I've seen you presentate, man, it's always awesome, man. So thanks a lot, man. I mean, you know, you're always welcome to stay. We'll probably go to breakout rooms in a little bit, but you're always welcome to stay. And I look forward to hooking up with you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, man, let's connect while I'm out in Tacoma. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So you guys don't know, Adam just told me that he'll be in my territory in a couple of weeks. So I can't wait to hook up with him and then, you know, have lunch or something like that. And then hopefully, you know, or catch him after or before he goes fly fishing.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So, but look, we gotta, I just want to say to, I'm gonna go to roll call real quick. Just want to say, you know, some things are really doing good with the GOB network. We see Jim is back. You know, now it's time to join the GOB network for apartment investors and really learn and network with a lot of people for free. Yeah, I'm very, very excited for this weekend. I get to hook up with my brother from another mother, Mr. Lawrence Laddie, Mr. International, and we'll be roommates for a couple of days. So you know, I look forward for that, and I look forward to going and see my kids as well. So I already talked to Lawrence already, but Lawrence will be the guest speaker, that's the guest host next week. So, but me and him will talk about that more. So, but I look forward to that. I'll still be on, but I just won't be on right on time because my daughter has a volleyball game. So, so anybody else? We just gonna go to. We're not gonna have breakout rooms. It's an open session. Adam, you're welcome more to stay, sir, and provide knowledge. So I'm gonna turn it pause. I'm gonna turn it off right now.